Hey guys, welcome to Make a Dog podcast. Today we have with us Ujjwal. Ujjwal is a Solana developer who has made some really amazing products like Stellar Soul, Bounty Bar, and Solana Developer Tool. He is a fellow super team member who has his own the Ujjwal Minute in every community call. He also has dabbled a lot with AI and core blockchain concepts and in finance also. So hey Ujjwal, glad to have you on the podcast.
Hello, sir. Yes, thanks for inviting me here. I'm glad to hear and let's share something insightful.
Ujjwal, let's start with the most basic and over-asked and the most boring question in Web3 itself. How did you get into Web3?
My journey of getting into Web3 was not really like other developers where like they came in for the tech. Starting out at blockchain or even Bitcoin, I didn't really knew about the tech part. Even though I was programming in artificial intelligence, the major thing that attracted me was the finance of Bitcoin. Because I was heavily involved in the finance side, like at 14. So I used to dabble in stocks using dad's money. That got me interested in Bitcoin. Then I came for the finance, but stayed for the tech. And over time, the concepts was built around in the community that were really fascinating to me.
When did you start development, and like what intrigued you most about finance? So like at this point in time, there are no different streams of education like commerce, science, that you have to pick one, and then you develop an interest in later stages. Then how did this interest like what came around in your life that was like, damn, that's awesome, like I should read more, that made you curious about this stuff?
So starting out with development, that was back in 2018. I was on class 8 back then. At that time, Alexa and Google Assistant was really popular. I really wanted one at my home because it was fun to play around, but didn't really get one. So had to try to make my own stuff with Python. It turned out to be like really bad, but if I look at the code base now, it turned out to be like really bad. But at that time, it felt really good. So I made like a basic voice assistant that could do all kinds of stuff. So I made like a voice-based chatbot called Friday. So continued that project for 4 months in Python. Learned a lot through that project. That was my introduction to programming, and then continued further. I've experimented around a lot. So before like getting into blockchain or even specifically going into machine learning, I've like dabbled around a lot of things. I've tried Android development. I've tried game development. I've tried a lot of data science stuff. That's how I got into machine learning. And then from that interest in machine learning, it also brings me to neuroscience. So that's something I just like to read about. And the same thing links back to finance. And finance got me into Bitcoin. That got me to blockchain.
Yeah,
Links back to my tech journey. So that's how
you
everything got
mentioned
linked.
that you got really intrigued by the like when Alexa and Google Home came out. And like have you explored the open source variants of it? Like this one time when I was in college and we were trying to make something of like voice assistant for PCs, I came across a project called Jarvis. Like did you come across like at that time? Because like I guess this was in 2019, if I'm not wrong, that Jarvis an open source project. It was like the next level awesome thing that one could experiment with. Like, are you aware of it at least? Open source project called Jarvis, the voice assistant.
Yeah. So when I was dabbling around on YouTube, right, finding some reference, because I was like a really bad programmer at that time, just starting out. So there was a lot of projects called Jarvis, everyone replicating the Iron Man model.
Yeah,
And yeah,
no, not that one. But like, yeah, I get your point. So let's not just go deep into Jarvis, Friday, and Captain America and Iron Man. So, but I really like that at that age, because there are a lot of hurdles when you are learning something new. So even if like age is not a age is not a barrier, but it is the process of learning. At first it is easier, and then there are like major roadblocks that you have to cross to understand the concepts and the processes itself. So how did you come up with like let's just say to give you an example. So writing hello world in any language is pretty much easy, but writing a three function program is relatively difficult, but you can learn it easily. And then creating a app
yeah,
or like a simple app like a notes app, even a notes app, or like just a responsive app that throws out or coding a button, that is something difficult because it involves multiple function calls. if you press a button and it pops up, say, "Hey, Ujjwal." So how did you face those challenges, like those learning hurdles in finance or in AI or in programming? So like to sum it up, like how did you overcome those learning hurdles in your life?
So learning hurdles, I would say you start from the basics and then build on top of it. Everything links back to the n minus one part. If you're clear on your n minus one level, then you'll be clear on your next level, right? And if you miss the basics, if the foundation is not strong, the building won't be strong, right?
Okay, so how do you ensure that your basics are clear? So let's just say, I've read a lot about Bitcoin, I've read a lot about blockchains, but there are some concepts that are like modular blockchain, layer two blockchains, that I feel I am like not that clear about them, but I know what they are. Like I know how they operate, but I'm on the fundamental level, I'm not clear. So would that be covering all the bases, or would that not be covering all the bases? So like, how do you think about this stuff?
I think the best answer here would be to just go by first principles. So you might have heard of it. Go to basics of everything, the most fundamental units, and then try to experiment around it. If you're clear on those fundamental units, you can surely achieve the complex parts. So as I mentioned, right, if I want to learn what's Bitcoin, if I want to learn what's Ethereum, and then I want to write a smart contract, right? So I would learn how Ethereum works. I would learn how the transaction is working. I would learn how the validation is working. Then I would start slowly start learning solidity, right? And that's valid for even any other blockchain.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I've known you a long time, and you've built a lot of fun projects in 2022 last year, and I just want to know which was your favorite and which had the best learning curve for you. Like there are a lot of projects that we've also worked together on. So which was your favorite project of 2022, or like the super team project?
So last year, my favorite project I thought was Terrasoul. So like got a lot of learning curve, got a lot of exposure because of that, and experimented around a lot. So that was the best part. Though I'm no longer working at Stella, it has a great team and hope
Okay,
it goes well.
so for anyone from our audience, like they would like to know what is Stellar Soul, and like how does it work, and what is the like most craziest concept about it?
Celestone, the best concept as the Kunal Bagaria came up with it. Imagine like if you could buy on platforms like Amazon and Flipkart and Myntra just using USDC. You're earning in crypto and you can spend in crypto directly without incurring any kind of off ramps, right? So that's the best part. It removes all kind of exchange fee. It removes all kind of user experience hurdles, especially in countries like India where like off ramps is like a big issue.
Speaking of off ramping and finance, so on ramping is pretty easy and off ramping is pretty hard. Like that is understood. So other than that, in DeFi also, what do you think are the major concepts that people need educating about? So like most people don't know about liquidity swaps or liquid staking, and these are pretty cool concepts, but they are not yet scaled to the extent of like to their maximum potential, I would say. So what are some concepts that you are like, damn, that's really awesome, and what if many people could use it? What are such concepts for you?
I think, yeah. So in DeFi, I think this is something we are doing wrong. We have made all these amazing concepts with good looking names, but it's too complex for the actual user to understand it. Until unless the retail is there to suppose invest in a liquidity pool, the majority investment comes from institutional investors. And we are just seeing what happens when the institutions goes down. All of the DeFi is just wrecked right now.
Yeah, so you mentioned about retail getting involved, but how do you ensure when retail gets involved and there are a lot of moving parts in a pool? Let's just say we are talking about specifically a pool, not just the entire DeFi landscape. So how do you create systems that are easy to understand for the masses, but also at the same time they are safe and scalable?
Earlier, people used to learn a lot about stocks and how a stock's working, but now you have all these startups trying to solve the user experience problem, and you can just easily avail stocks on like a few clicks. Get a KYC, deposit amount, buy the stock, done. That's amazing user experience. But to add that to DeFi, there's like multiple layers of learning curves that add to it, right? So that's where all the user experience gets messed up. To answer your question of like making a better DeFi protocol that has easier UX, best thing would be yes, the user should know about everything, but but that set of everything should be the minimal possible.
Okay.
It shouldn't be like user should know each and every formula. It should just be okay. This is my money. I just want to sleep good at night. and I want to use my capital efficiently. This is a new concept of decentralized finance that I'm going to be using, but I have all this knowledge now. So that's up to the investor, right?
Okay, that said, there are a lot of protocols and lot of, what can I say, DeFi applications. They are like trying to educate the masses. So let's just take example of liquid staking. There is so much content going around it. There are so many videos about what is staking, what is proof of work, proof of concept, everything. So what do you think, even if there is so much abundance of information available, what is stopping people from actually going to liquid staking? What would be the what would, like, according to me, the wallet infrastructure is pretty much broken. There is no safety net if you forget your seed phrase or your password, and that pretty much like keeps you on your toes all the time. But it comes with its benefits. There should be a semi-custodial wallet so that people can at least recover funds with some sort of proof. And there are new concepts that are coming around, but according to me, that is the like biggest pain point of people onboarding in Web3. So like wallet is the wallet infrastructure is difficult, and second is having funds in wallets. Like on ramping is also a bit difficult. According to you, what would be the like what is the most difficult like in the entire DeFi experience cycle?
So let's start in like a linear way, starting out with onboarding. Then it comes to the investment and lending borrowing pools, and then it comes to using that capital for some XYZ reason, right? So coming out to the onboarding part, yes, I would completely agree that the wallet experience is majorly broken, though there are new wallets coming up that are trying to solve this problem. So if you see Web3 Auth, they are doing good work on it. Plus Gari's wallet SDK, I think that's really good for dApps to use. So as Web3 Auth does it, right? You can just log in using a Google account. That's as simple as it gets, right? Plus Saga phone is coming up. So that really makes the experience much better. And then coming on to the using the DeFi pool part, that part is more of a exponential learning curve, and better the learning on that side, better the usage. Now there's something that comes in. Currently, majority of the lending and borrowing is done by institutions, and retail is majorly like the side portion of it. But what if we can improve that with the layer of credibility, right? I am trying to build like a credibility protocol on Solana. This is not really announced yet. This podcast is uploaded after that. You can go check it out on my Twitter. What we plan to do is make a credibility layer on top of the DeFi protocol, rewarding the good users' behavior and having better customer acquisition for the DeFi pool. And that's where we can add a layer of credibility to Solana, having better retail investors and suppose bringing more liquidity for uncollateralized and undercollateralized loans.
So it is a credibility layer for, like, starting off, it is a credibility layer for lending and borrowing.
Yep. Though we are starting out with over collateralized loans because that's the most used right now.
Okay. And what is the like how did you come up with the solution of this, like adding a credibility layer to the DeFi experience or the lending borrowing experience? So let's just say I am very cautious about, I dabble into DeFi. I use swaps, I use staking, I use liquidity pools, but I am not certain about using loans or like borrowing and lending borrowing. So how do you add credibility to something that has already traditionally been like, it's better to not be in debt than take a loan out and do something like, and like I'm not sure like that is a path that many people follow, but like that is the sentiment that it is always good to not take out a loan unless you really need it. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, so observing the same from DeFi and traditional finance, if we see, so credit borrowed in traditional finance has much more use cases than the credit in DeFi. It's it's like the majority of the credit comes from over collateralized loans, right? It's like you keep 100% of asset A and borrow 70% to 75% of asset B. That doesn't really enable much of the use cases in real life. But DeFi would only make a real impact if we are able to enable retail to use more capital and blockchain handling the money efficiently.
That makes sense, but looking at the current infrastructure of messy off ramping, I would just call it messy off ramping. So even if we took down the collateralization to, let's just say, not 100%, but like let's just say 60% collateralization, so that I can borrow more on my asset, like then I am putting my asset down, like in traditional finance. So even there is a problem of off ramping. So if I want to do something amazing in the Web3 space itself, at the end of the day, people would still need the money in fiat so that they can spend it on day to day life. So would the credibility layer enable off ramping, or like can it come closer for authorities or for like institutions to believe in it, so that off ramping would be easier because of the credibility layer?
So if we see, like, with blockchain in general, everyone wants to stay anonymous. That, but in regular finance, you can approach the person and get them to pay the loan back. That's where under collateralized loans make a lot of sense in traditional finance because you have some social identity attached there. But in DeFi, people are building on under collateralized loans, but adding that layer of credibility is important because then how do you enable accountability, right? The person can just take the loan at a lower cost and run off.
That makes sense, but like if we add a sort of KYC to the current applications of DeFi, so like it might enable faster financial instruments. So like let's just say I won't need a week to wait for my bank to approve a loan or something like that, and I would eventually be paid off with like bit of less collateral and also off ramp it and on ramp it easily. So does the credibility layer enable that? So like on ramping, off ramping is the biggest pain. Like not on ramping as so much, but off ramping. So my initial question, like coming back to my question, is like having a credibility layer somewhat ease the process of off ramping.
Well, so credibility layer is more on the side of borrowing and lending rather than being on ramping and off ramping. Though that's a good point. We can also use the same credentials for on ramp and off ramps. But this problem currently exists in countries that don't really accept crypto or like where crypto functions like gray. That's where we need more crypto apps built on top of traditional finance rails rather than completely crypto solving more engineering
That makes
problems.
sense.
They should solve more IRL use
Mhm.
cases.
Yeah, like I was just like the only so the initial question was just like credibility layer would like be an extension for like all of like DeFi, so that other domains of DeFi can jump in other than borrowing and lending. So more and more people can have access to it rather than going through like a sequence of processes to do something trivial. So that was just my like
Yeah.
curiosity around like the product you're building. But like I guess I hope it has like this fun application coming ahead, like in like V3 or something.
Well, though it's just more like a nascent idea right now. I hope that
Yeah, like
happens.
I'm really excited about like what you're building, because every time I talk to you, you are like something, you're building something amazing in the blockchain space or the developer space or the finance space. So it is really fun to talk about such ideas with you. I'm just curious, like there are not a lot of folks in your age or like in your friend circles, like IRL friends, that understand the things that you do. And then how do you explain them like, damn bro, over collateralization loans, do you know the loan I put down, and I took like, let's just say I put down money and got like 1500 USDC, and now it is now it like the ETH value increased and now I'm like happy or something like
It's like really complex and awkward.
that.
Though my dad is in tech, so he understands all kinds of stuff. But coming on to friends, there's no chance of explaining them, even if I try to, or it's just lack of curiosity.
Okay.
Though some of them are really good or interested in the space, I invite them over to ecosystem calls.
And so, other than Web3, other than blockchains, other than AI, other than laptops or computers, what are you genuinely interested about? So, do you have a hobby, or are you amazing on all fields of like, do you play under 16 cricket or a national player, badminton player? Like, I'm like really curious about you, like, other than the obvious part that we are talking about, what is it that you do to cope with like there is some stress associated in Web3. So how do you cope with that? Like it won't be as easy as like just I just turn off the computer and don't think about it.
So majority of my time outside of laptops go to reading. I have the recurring expenses on buying books. That's really interesting to me. That's where more of the non-crypto knowledge comes from. Other than books, it's I go out for a walk. So that's really comforting to the brain.
Okay. So which books are you currently reading?
Currently, I'm just reading entrance exam books
Okay.
and nothing more.
Okay. Reading so many books have made you articulate. So like I was reading a blog that you wrote and it was really awesome. So how do you what is the process for like explaining what you do? So like most developers are not so efficient with their words. So like they'll create protocols but they won't write documentations. And how are you like explaining the stuff you're doing? So like this was a pretty basic example of like the mid journey prompt thing prompt blog that you wrote, but overall like what is your process, like how do you articulate and like what do you do to keep your articulation skill in check?
So Einstein said this, right? If you can't explain what you're doing to a 10-year-old kid, then you haven't really understood it yourself. Linking it back to the first principles, the most annoying thing in my day I do is try to explain what I'm doing to my brother,
And he also a DeFi wizard?
to my younger brother. He's more into VFX and graphics.
Okay.
But yeah, so I try to explain that to my brother and to my parents. Most of the times they understand. Sometimes it's hard to explain. But as you go through multiple books, as you try to explain what you're doing to a lot of people, just create certain insights from that. How do I present this certain topic? How do I present this certain topic in like a particular sequence so that it's easier to understand for people? So as I mentioned, right, a couple of majority of devs would be like they can write code, but they can't explain their code or they can't present it. And then that's a shortcoming of engineers. If you can't really present what you have built, it's just a bunch of code, right?
That makes sense, that makes sense. And like going back to the interesting topic that you like, finance. And I was just curious, like how did you come across ReFi? And like first of all, please explain what is ReFi to our audience, and like please explain it again to me so that I'll be more articulate the next time I explain it to someone.
So ReFi is basically they're trying to solve real life problems, social, economic, governance, and climate problems using blockchain. Blockchain as a source to manage money efficiently and interact and have more peer-to-peer interactions. It has been really performed in countries in Africa and have started to come up in South Asian countries. Though my introduction to ReFi was with this project called Atlantis. They found it to really help me got into ReFi and it introduced me to a bunch of folks and topics.
Can you explain ReFi with an example so that all these big chunky words like regenerative finance, assets, and blockchain gets abstracted in some way? Like, can you be a chat GPT version of ReFi?
Okay, so let's break it down, right? What is regenerative and then finance? Regenerative parts comes from, hey, we want to do something that's beneficial for the society. And finance parts comes from, what if we include financial incentives onto that? We are using blockchain to manage that financial part more efficiently, which is, I think, blockchain the best system is currently we have to manage finance. And regenerative finance comes from those good or positive motives towards the society.
Okay. So basically, what it is like, it enables people to go more, let's just say, carbon neutral, and it benefits them financially also. And you can see it on chain.
Yep, kind of a good
Yeah.
explanation.
And like, what is your take on ReFi? So like, it is a bit complicated concept, and it is, I guess, it is a pretty new concept. Like, I came it across a few months back. So, what do you think is the scalability of this concept is? Because there are a lot of financial concepts that have been played around, like because Web3 or blockchain or crypto is in very early stage. We come up with all these crazy concepts, but what are some financial concepts that you think would eventually make it and change the world? Would be the Facebook and Google of like Web3.
So for the first question, for my take on ReFi, this links back to a previous discussion, right? So building more IRL use cases on chain. So ReFi is currently the best example of that. Enabling more people with social, economic, and governance issues, and that's also helping the climate in certain parts of the region, in certain parts of the world. Currently, I don't think there's any app that would just go on be the Facebook of blockchain because I will let that. We had the second biggest exchange collapse, so you can't
No, but
really say
like,
anything
what is
about
the
it.
conceptual level? So like, FTX was not a. I won't consider it a Web3 counterpart of anything, because it was a centralized exchange. At the end, it was a centralized exchange which was like institutionally funded. But like, what is some like core Web3 projects? So like, let's just say Kunal, our friend, like he built Wagmi Boy. Like it is a core Web3. It solved like, it was like an amazing product. Wordcell, it is an amazing protocol which is like decentralizing and like taking away censorship and like owning the public and everything. So what are some projects that you feel like that would make the change? So most of the current projects are like somewhat solving current cracks in Web2 ecosystem, but there are some ideas that are entirely Web3. So like DAOs, governance, these were not possible unless blockchain came in. So because of blockchain, some of these ideas came to life, and there are some DAOs, there are some governance models that are still working, and they are like working, like they are like setting examples like Curve or like different protocols, DeFi protocols that are like governed. So according to you, what are some Web3 based solutions that would eventually scale in the future?
So as we move forward towards a more Web3 or blockchain used apps, right? I think social layer would be one of the biggest ones used because your data privacy is important, but owning your credentials is even more important. I think virtual that's building gum for the social layer would be much more important there. Plus, yeah, there's a bunch of use cases that would sustain, but those that allow composability would be the one winning forward.
Okay. So, like, any favorites? Like, I'll just give a quick disclaimer. So, we know that we are in the really early stage, but for me, any application that achieves multi-chain interoperability first and has some sort of B2C use case, that would be the first of its kind to scale, because the biggest pain is like maintaining 100 different wallets across 100 different chains, and then maintaining those assets and going to different dApps for different things. So anything like any application that would abstract all of the multi-chain aspect, and it would just be like conceptual blockchain and leveraging different power, like leveraging powers of different blockchains for some specific use case. So like let's just say Ethereum has really active NFT collection. Like Ethereum is really big on NFTs, and Solana is really good at transactions.
So yeah, building upon your point, as I mentioned, right, easy interoperability that comes with easy user experience. For me, that product is that I've seen go from 0 to 1, and I personally use a lot. It's Wurzel, and Farcaster is really good on EVM side. As well as more DeFi use cases for IRL users, right? For the retail investor, I think those apps that don't really feel like they're DeFi, but just feel like another credit app, right? Those apps would be the best and most scalable
Okay,
ones. So step on your well, right? They didn't really feel like a blockchain app, but they are a play-to-earn game built on Solana. So superior UX.
that's really awesome, man. Like UX, good UX, and helping people understand what, like abstracting away all the complexities of blockchain. That would be the case, because like even when internet and like the internet boom happened, no one was expecting how TCP IP works. They were just working like website, like I'll just put down the website link and I want to go to Facebook. So we need
Yeah.
really good abstractions, and like you mentioned, Wordsen is a great one. And that's uh, uh like that's coming back to the point. Except for this credibility layer that you're building, what are the some projects that you're actively contributing to, or like some projects that you know are like you're involved with, and like what are you doing in general with these projects? Like I know you are a consultant in some projects. I know that you are like developing, you used to develop, you used to work as a developer in some projects. So what are you currently doing, like other than building this credibility line, like because it's Web3 and everyone is doing something and other like multiple things at once. So
Yeah, so other than this new idea, which I hope goes well, core contributor to Super Team Vietnam. So that's been going well. So it's Super Team expansion to Vietnamese region, enabling more people to earn and develop on Solana. I've been contributing there, so that's really going well.
okay, so I won't just bore you to death with so many vivid questions. But like going back to our discussion, you said you are really into books. And being a fellow reader, I would just like to know what kind of books are you reading, because like there are some books that are like really heavy and you don't understand. And like, what is your favorite book and what is the book that you're trying to read as of now? So like, I tried the Lex Friedman challenge and I failed in the first week itself. So, what are the books that you're reading?
I wanted to try the Lex Room challenge, but all the exams and stuff. But yeah, my favorite book is, I would say, 21 Lessons from 21st Century by Yuval Noah Harari. That's like the book. It got published in 2018. I read the book in 2020, 2 years late, during COVID lockdown, right? So it has a bunch of predictions for what happens in future. Now, what happened is COVID, COVID took place. It was really horrible for a lot of people. But the other thing that happened was it fast paced the future. Things that were going to happen a couple of years from now, suppose 5 years from now, happen early. Or 5 years might be a short timeline, I'm saying, but those things happen early. Something as simple as virtual classes, right? In India, you didn't really expect virtual classes to happen, but everyone just shifted to Zoom and Microsoft Teams, virtual workrooms, work from home. So that all really happened fast. That led to a lot of development.
Right.
People got a lot of time to learn. That's why blockchain came up, and there was a lot of internet usage. When I look back to the predictions at 21 Lessons, it all came to life earlier than expected. All the predictions about AI taking over jobs, though it doesn't really take over job, it affects the ratio a lot. So that was one of the things. But yeah, and the other would be Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel.
It's a favorite
That's
of
one of
mine also, Psychology of Money. You mentioned about AI taking over jobs and affecting. It's not exactly taking over job, but it is the ratios. What do you mean? What do you exactly mean by that?
So in the past 3 months, right, we had a boom of all the AI tools coming up. We had ChatGPT, we have Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, WTF by Yash. Congrats. So what happened is, suppose earlier I required 10 people for a job, or let's take a better example. Suppose earlier I required 3 people to write an article. One to make the graphics, one to handle the marketing and distribution, and one writing the article, right? But now with ChatGPT and Midjourney, I can do all of this using a single person. That affected the ratio of jobs. So I'm not saying that it's like a complete loss of jobs, but it's creation and disruption on one
I
side.
don't think it is a destruction of sorts, because uh like in my experience, like I've been writing a long time, like I can assure you that. So in my experience, that AI is really good at doing mediocre things well. So if you want a mediocre article or like a mediocre blog with like, because AI is not at that stage that it understands the different uh keys of a blog that is expected of a certain piece. Let's just say it would give out a great templates for newsletters, but at the end of the day, you have to cater to a specific needs of any newsletter, of any community, of any organization. And there was this discussion I was having with a friend, and we came up with the same point, like AI is really good at doing at mediocre job and automating things. So I can always use AI for research or like understanding complicated concepts, but eventually it is not going to replace a great writer. AI can tell a great story, but an amazing story would always come off with someone creative person. That's what I feel like. As of now, AI is just a tool for people who understand their craft, and it is yet to, like, after, like, this is very ambitious, but like after 2 to 3 years, when AI is trained enough, then it would replace jobs in the artistic domains. But that too is way too ambitious, because like even Mid Journey says like everything you can imagine, but like that depends on the person that is imagining things. So that's my take on it. And like,
I would
what do you
agree.
think of it?
Yeah, so actually I had an article about this saying generative art, evolution of creators and artists, right? So if you see this evolution, now you no longer need to learn how to paint, or no longer need the knowledge of color theory. But if you know how to do it, you'll be much better using the AI tools than the regular or average person, right? So it's the same difference between learning how to use Photoshop and learning how to use Canva. Thus, you lower the gap of using the tools and lower that layer. Now both the people can create same stuff, but the person who knows how to use Photoshop and has the knowledge of all the artistic domains would be much better even at using Canva.
Yeah, like I also came across this one blog like that explained like AI eventually is a tool. It is not something that is like going to control us and like control jobs. AI won't replace jobs. It is a better off tool, like you said, layer abstraction. But anyone or any business, any company would always go for optimization and results rather than hiring more and more people. So AI just optimizes the work you do in an efficient way. So like I can, like if I used to write a blog in like 3 days, I can just write it in like one day because I can abstract away my research, my basic concepts to AI, and then I can dabble with it. So that's pretty much it, I think. And like then it brings to another question, like how do you think AI and Web3 would create dApps that would be like really awesome? So that I had this idea a while ago. What if you create a dApp where there is a stable diffusion model running, and you mint and own everything you create with like a small fees and like minting fees? What are some crazy applications that you think that would like really mix the both worlds of Web3 and AI, that are both new and like coming up?
So yeah, minting the stable diffusion generated images is like one of the step one. It's the hello world program of the mixture of blockchain and AI. So this is how I've recently started thinking about it. Across history, our fights and all the revolutions have been for equal access, equal ownership, and equal access in the history across all the time. The execution layer was owned by governments or institutions that tend to be biased or tend to be preferential. That doesn't really make it equal. But now with blockchain and AI, blockchain as the execution layer and AI as a tool that that skills the unskilled. Now we have an equal access, common execution layer. So now the person so now everyone can have equal access to that layer or even token created by the communities on blockchain and generate their content or add to the society using tools like AI where they don't really need to learn skills or the learning curve is much more easier now.
But like currently the AI narrative is strictly limited to content. But what I'm really excited about is AI dabbling into different domains like design, medical design, not just like UI UX design, but like aerospace design, car design. Uh, what are some things that you feel like that AI would be like much more amazing if used efficiently? In which domains? So like I'm being really ambitious here, and like I'll just share what I think. I think if AI used correctly in the energy domain and like nuclear physics, we could do wonders with like uh, getting to carbon neutral states much earlier. And that's what I feel like. There was this experiment last month or like last month where they controlled the fusion of hydrogen filled filament and like the blasted lasers all over it, and they
Yeah,
controlled the fusion.
they were able to generate
Yeah,
much
yeah.
of
They put
energy.
in two units of energy, and they got out 3 units of energy, and it was in a controlled way. And I think if AI is present there, there might be more engineering based solutions to achieving those outcomes sooner. What do you think about it?
Well, first of all, I'm quite sure AI is being used at domains that people don't really know of, but it's just present in the backend side, assisting. I think AI assistance would become like a regular thing. It would be like your second brain, trained on your data and assisting you more efficiently. But it also links back to, as you mentioned, right? Where do I think AI would be more efficient? It just simply links back to the Chinese whistle problem. So something as simple as translation, right? That Google chatbot doesn't really know Chinese, but it's going back. It has a bunch of data. It's learning and giving back me the Chinese result, or for any sort of language. That same thing applies to every other domain. So if you train the AI model efficiently, of course it won't be perfect, but it's much more efficient than the regular person.
Makes sense, makes sense. But like it is more of a helping tool to learn stuff, execute stuff, rather than something that would eventually replace you and all of humanity.
I think that's for the time being. Because if you see, OpenAI developed Codex, right? a lot of programmers now use it for assistance, but it's also being trained on the same VS Code data you're feeding it the programs on. Now, linking back to the ChatGPT version, now ChatGPT can generate code with GPT 3.5 much more efficiently, and Codex also has some new upgrades. So we are making these tools more efficient, and I'm on the optimistic side of it. So hopefully it goes well. But yeah, over time it'll more like bots talking to each other than we using them as tools.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So, Ujjwal, I'm sorry for pouring you to this conversation, but like, one
It is a
question, and then you'll be free of me, I could say. So, what do you think of the MakerDoc as a community, and what do you see the potential of this community?
so MakerDoc has been really helpful to me personally. We have all these amazing people working in different domains and variety of backgrounds. People coming from different sectors like finance, or the people coming from civil engineering and getting into Web3 or even regular AI and ML stuff. Building all kinds of amazing stuff with guidance from their peers and leveling up to the game, right? So that's like without any kind of incentives. That was really fascinating to me. A community that all these people have came up with. Soumya sir was really have always been helpful to me. Yana Majji sir, complete legend, and of course myself.
Baisab is the best mentor that one can have, like across domains. Like, even if you're not a developer, the level of insights he has is just amazing.
Yeah,
And what do you think the potential of this community is?
this community can make like some of the best products and vibe at the same point. You can go for a football match and then go for a hackathon.
Yeah. So like the feelings is mutual, like about MakerDoc. So like in like 10 years, there might be uh, what can I say, an NFT collection about I was a MakerDoc member once. And then you can put it on your resume and then put it on your like social profiles, like ex MakerDoc or like current MakerDoc member or early MakerDoc member. Just like so what happened with Super Team eventually, like being a member is so prestigious to be.
Well, that links back to the people. What people do matters more for the community than the prestige of
Yeah.
community, right?
But like I was talking about the like whole community aspect of it. But yeah, it's been fun talking to
Yeah,
you,
but
man. Like really, really awesome conversation. And again, learned a lot from you. Had your great insights. And thanks for doing this, man. Cheers.
thanks for inviting me.